Not this time. But sometimes I can. Sometimes you don't know if I'm really here or if I filmed something and off I went to some exotic locale. Sometimes I pretend like I'm really here, but I don't mention anybody because I'm trying to let you feel like things are happening live and organic and on the moment so you can enjoy the experience. But because I want you guys to enjoy the experience and feel like it's live, well, I go ahead and not say anything about it and hope that you just enjoy the ride. Unfortunately, tonight is not one of those times. Tonight I'm really here, which means, yes, I'll comment about the people that comment. Yes, I'll bring up some of the fans that show up every Monday night. But the good news is this. The one thing you can count on for Brad Stine Has Issues is this. Number one, you'll never see Wyatt. And trust me, it's for your own good. And number two, if you were longing for the theme song, well, long no more. Yeah. It is me, and it is me right now. Brad Stine, God's comic, the guy you've seen all his clips of and said, let's jump on and see if he's just as funny normal as he is on his big fat show. This is Brad Stine Has Issues, and this is 7 o'clock Monday, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. I am the head, the face, the talking guy that makes the whole podcast seem like it's something that you can see and make sense and put all the pieces together. But my sidekick is my son, Wyatt Leroy Stine, and he is simply in the ethers, but you can hear his voice. It comes like this.
Hey, it's me, the disembodied voice that makes this podcast work.
Yes, it's a great voice. He's got buttons and he's got a mouth and a mind and a mic, and he makes it happen. I'm so glad you're here with me, son. And I'm glad that you're here at all. And you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that you exuded from my loins, and that's why you exist. And I brought you into existence, so I'm glad you're here. For those who don't know, he does work at Lowe's part-time. And that's often a wonderful place of mockery. So, Wyatt, glad to have you with us tonight on Monday night. Are you feeling good? You feeling up? Did you have a cup of coffee?
No.
Did you have a hot chocolate?
No.
Did you have some iced tea?
Yes.
You did?
I did.
Do you ever, does it make you want to, do you have to, do you find yourself constantly having to run to the restroom?
No, I do need to meander from time to time, though.
Do you find yourself meandering a lot?
Honestly, I find myself using the word meander a lot. Why aren't more people using that word? It's a fun one.
It's a good word, and I think it has a lot of quaintness to it. It's an older word, and yet it still feels to hold up, don't you think? Because some words don't hold up, like patent leather. What doesn't hold up?
I don't know. What doesn't hold up? You tell me. It's your joke.
Buggy doesn't hold up.
Buggy, okay. I can't think of any words that don't hold up per se, but I do know that there are some words that if you say them enough times, they just stop sounding like words.
Give me an example.
Vanilla. Vanilla. At some point,
it doesn't sound like a word anymore.
It's just sound.
Sounds like you're making funny sounds, though.
Kind of.
Vanilla. It sounds like you're saying a funny thing. Vanilla.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I see. I see where you're going. That's nice. I get you.
But there are some words that no matter how many times you say them, they always sound like words.
Give me an example.
The. It still has the same punch to it, you know?
Now, you mean the.
Well, I'm using the old-timey word.
Okay.
The.
So,
not to be confused with the.
Yeah, but the is the word you're referencing. Now,
No, the sounds horrible after like 5 attempts. But the is eternal. It will always sound good.
Oh, yep. I hear thee.
Yeah.
And I agree with thee. You know, it's
Do
funny,
you?
White. Do you ever think about the word the? You were just saying the, and then I referenced the. And the is a very, very, simple word. It's TH, it's just 3 letters. But do you realize we couldn't even have a conversation in English without the word the?
Yeah.
We use it maybe more than, I'll bet you use that word more often per day than any word in your vocabulary.
It is the most used word in my lexicon. And I haven't the foggiest idea what it means. Seriously, right now, what's the definition of the? Go ahead.
The, a word that is not the.
Okay. Now, what's the definition of the?
The word that referenced the earlier.
Okay, but you see what I'm getting at here. It's like, it's a word we use all the time, but like most people don't know what it actually
No, they don't break it
means.
down. It's like or it maybe or.
Well, no. It is easy. It is simply a informal way of referencing something.
Okay, but a, just the word a. I don't want
refers, well, can. The thing with is that it has a lot of different definitions.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. It could be used to describe a singular object. Banana.
Okay.
Apple. But it doesn't have to mean that. It has other definitions.
So if we were referencing it as itself, you could say
Technically, but at that point you're getting into those grammatical rules for like stuff that shouldn't make sense technically does.
Well, my
Like,
grammatical
folks-
died when she was 83 years old, so I'm really shocked you bring it up because it makes me sad. It
Well,
makes me think.
I'm just saying, in the English language, the sentence buffalo, 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 buffalo is completely grammatically correct, and I hate that fact with every single fiber of my being.
Why? How many fibers did you have in your being?
Not much after I heard that for the first time.
Why? You know who's watching us?
Nick Cress.
What the heck? Saint Nick is now doing it, and guess who's not watching with him?
The other person who is always watching with him, whose name I totally remember right now.
Well, guess what?
Yep.
Plenty Flowers is there, and she says, "Hi, everyone." Aaron Oak says, "Music, hit it." Who doesn't love the song, White? Danny Herring, happy Monday, Brian White. God bless you both. Hi, everyone. Isn't she sweet? Don't we miss Danny? Don't we miss her? Don't you picture her? I want a poster of Danny somewhere riding a dog sled through the upper Yukon.
That's an oddly specific request.
Because she's a Kanaka, and she's way up north, and she's trapped under the Trudeau's tyranny. And I just feel sorry for her. And I feel like she's a rugged mountain lady. She probably wears her hair in braids, super cool, with a shirt that is, what do you call those shirts that are like lumberjack shirts? Flannel. She wears flannel shirts, but under her flannel shirt, I'll bet you she wears underwear, long underwear, thermal underwear, flannel shirts, and maybe sort of some kind of
is this going
fur-lined jacket, and then some kind of deep cap with ear flaps, and she's on her dog sled, and she's going forth. She's got her AR over here, but she's slacking, whack, whack, and off she's going, trying to get to the border and get across into the USA, where the tyranny here hasn't quite reached epic proportions like it has in Canada. That's why I like Danny Herring. That's what I appreciate about that.
That was
woman.
a Lord of the Rings-esque the amount of detail used to describe a person. Like, that description makes me sound like this individual is about to go on an epic quest to save the world.
I feel like if I was out in the wilderness, I had been shot by bounty hunters because I was on the run, and she found me in the woods. She could nurse me back to health. She could dig out the bullet with a bone, a deer bone that she had whittled from a deer carcass she had shot herself and skinned and dressed, field dressed, and then created a deer blanket out of it, and she wraps that around me, and she carries me in because she's a strong woman. She's probably a Native American. And she carries me tightly like this, wrapped in that deer, and then she puts me into her little hut. It's a little lean-to that she created, but there's wood going there, there's fire there, and she chopped extra wood so we don't run out. And she tends to my health, and she gives me herbs off of a leaf that she created it and crafted it herself, and then pours it into my lips because I'm unconscious. But it's a ancient remedy, a herbal remedy that she concocted and brought me back to life. That's what I think about Danny when I think of Danny here.
That in its entirety is what you think about every single time you think about Danny?
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, because she's,
you just go full Shakespeare on it.
Son, if you're going Shakespeare, son, go full Shakespeare. Listen, you know who else is here is Karen Boyd, and she's got some smiley faces this time. Rebecca Daly Dwyer, good evening from Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. That's all Rebecca usually says. T.W. Smith, greetings, Brad and Loin Boy. You know what? T.W. is normally on. He's normally on YouTube.
Sorry, I pressed the wrong microphone on me.
This is the guy that's always messing with you on YouTube. So does he do both now? Is he toggling, or has he jumped on this so he can get his...
That's not what toggling means.
I don't know what
You don't know what most of the words you're using means, apparently.
Listen, do you know what a toggler is?
In the concept of video games, I know what a toggler is.
What is a toggler?
So in video games, especially competitive video games, toggling is the act of turning on and off cheats to avoid detection. Basically, if you have a cheat that lets you shoot through walls, you turn that on, get a kill, and then turn it off so nobody suspects anything.
So it's a hack.
It's not a hack. It's a method of using hacks to make it harder to detect that you're using them. Holy
smoke. Yeah. Sheldon Romero, top of the evening.
Well,
nice.
Hold on. Are we just done with that? Is there another definition of toggle you'd like to talk about?
No, I was...
so you spent 30 minutes describing a Canadian lumberjack forest dweller. But no, an actual interest, like an interesting concept about toggling is just beyond you. Really?
No, I just was worried about Sheldon Romero.
I'm worried about you.
And what about Forrest Bainey? He's here.
Fixation on the most random topics tonight.
All right, who's got the coolest name in town?
Look, our interview is like an hour and 15 minutes. You don't have to stall for time.
Who's got the coolest name in town?
Forrest Bainey.
Okay, well, he's here.
Okay, cool. But
and I wanted to know, he says, hello, money, 10,000, Brad. And
don't ignore this quandary we have.
Forrest is called you Loin Boy. Why, you have become Loin Boy.
Don't change the subject. We are talking about lumberjacks and toggling here.
Jeff Hayes. Hi there, Brad. Plenty Flowers. Taking a break from making pencil pouches for our youth Christmas gift bags with other goodies. Dinner time with egg sandwiches and fried potatoes with onion country style. What the heck? That is a Hallmark card. Taking a break from making pencil pouches for our youth Christmas gift bags with other goodies, dinner time with egg sandwiches and fried potatoes with onions country style. I mean, come on. Wasn't that sweet? Pencil pouches. When's the last time you had a pencil pouch, Wyatt?
What's a pencil pouch? Is that a thing?
Well, apparently, because she's making them for the youth.
So Jeff Palmer says, "What's up, Brad? Earth is flat, brother," and I would love to see your take on that.
Deanna, well, let me get to her. Deanna Miller, and then it says, sneaks in. Happy Monday, Karen Boyd. Wow, Loin Boy's really catching on. It is. Jeff Hayes, I had a pork chop with vegetables and a glass of milk. Paula Faye Marie Rauchi, suspenders. Paula Faye Marie Rauchi is my favorite four-named lady.
I'm trying to find the comments that you apparently don't kill.
Jim Brona. Hey, Jim. Good evening, Brad White. Thank you for inspiring our Monday nights. Hey, listen, Jim, if I wasn't here, I'm sure you'd find another way to inspire your Monday nights. I'm not that important, son. Yes, use me as you can until I'm just an empty shell and then cast me aside. You know who won't cast me aside? Danny Herring. She'll fix me up, and she will bring me back to life with her medicines, her herbal medicines, and her Native American dances. She probably has a dance to bring me back out of a coma dance, clearly. Pat Nelson, hello from Chicago. Hello. Duck. Chris Feldhausen, hello, Brad. Nicholas, thine holy hand grenade, of course. Art Hansen, hi from Racine, Wisconsin. Good to have you. Steve Probst, good to have you, buddy. Let's see. Plenty of flowers. Used before singular or plural nouns and noun phrases that denote particular specific persons or things. The baby, the dress I wore. Ha! Look at that. Used before singular or plural nouns and noun phrases that denote particular specified persons or things.
All right, that's great.
She took the and ran with it, son. David Todd, referring to an exclusive thing or person or place. Now, see, we got some nerds showed up this day. Rebecca Day Dwyer, of course, has lots of stuff. Karen Boyd, the or the. Art Hansen, blah, blah, blah. Stop it, Art. Greg Smith, hello, Brad and White. Sheldon Romero, if is a big word. Let's see. David Todd jumped in. James Voigt, Dana Hiron. Haha, we have Moose here. I yodel too. I told you. She has moose and she yodels.
Isn't that plural of moose meese?
Do you know why she has moose? So that if she finds me in the coma because I was shot by bounty hunters, she can cut open a moose and place me into its carcass to keep me alive while she gathers wood for our fire.
And are you just quoting Star Wars at this point?
No.
That's exactly what they do in Star Wars.
They did that, but it wasn't a moose. It was some crazy.
That changes.
It was a fake.
Everything.
Oh, for God's sake. Nick Crest, Danny Herring, chicken yodel. Oh, he remembered the chicken yodel. White, you have it?
Are you kidding me? I don't let people forget it.
Do you have it? You can play it?
Yeah, I have to play it.
Run it. Can you run it?
Yeah, give me a second.
He brought up the chicken. You know, folks, if you're brand new to Brad Stine Has Issues, yes, we're going to get to some serious stuff, but we always do some funny stuff, too, because that's why you get on in the first place thinking I'm going to be funny all the time, and the truth is I'm not funny all the time. I kind of get paid. I check in. They give me some dough. I say a funny thing. They laugh. I get money. I go home, and then I do this. So we got to run with it. But the chicken yodel is something that was one of my favorite son's obscure music moments, and he brought it on and he gave it to the folks. You got it, son?
Yeah, here it is.
Folks, it goes like this.
So yeah,
wow.
Imagine that for 2 minutes.
Who sings that, son?
Carrie Christensen.
Okay.
From 1998. From his hit album, Hooked on Yodeling.
Nice. And who isn't? Hey, David W. Todd, shalom from the Hoosier State. You know what the Hoosier State is? Canada, no, that's a country. No, Hoosier State's Indiana. That's where your dad's from. Praying for the shalom of Jerusalem and all of Israel. Amen, brother. Danny Herring, not far off. See, she really is a Native American that can tend me back to life if I'm in a Kona out in the freezing frigid. Inside of a moose carcass that she's carved open. I knew she was that kind of gal. Let's see. I'm here. Danny Herring, you are PFMR. Wyatt, give me the
what?
Well, your age group does letters that mean something in texty that I don't understand. I don't speak text.
Acronyms, you mean?
Yeah, PFMR. What is that?
PMFR?
PFMRs. Down here and said, so are you, PFMR. People for mainstream robots. Do you think it means that?
No.
Personality from Middle Rhode Island. No.
Potatoes.
Yeah.
Foraging, meat,
yeah,
roots. It's the four main food groups of lumberjacks trapped in the wilderness.
I love that, son. Jeff Hayes is there with some smiley faces, and Karen and Danny Herring are having a love fest amongst themselves. They've forgotten us now, and they're just talking to each other about how great they are. Jeff Palmer, what's up, Brad? Earth is flat, brother. Oh, I caught up to your flat Earth thing. Karen Boyd, Brad, soliloquy. Then squirrel goes to audience. What? David W. Todd. It's a hack. He just used hack to define the word as he insists it's not a hack. Somebody is confused. Who, David Todd, takes you down? It's a hack. He just used hack to define the word as he insists it's not a hack. Oh. All right. Ashley Haas. Just another Monday. Oh. Wyatt.
Yes.
Somebody just showed up.
Uh,
Her name is Ashley Haas.
yeah.
You know who she is?
We've met.
Listen, for those of you who have not been part of this drama, about a month and a half ago, I was performing at a church in Illinois, and I met Ashley Haas. And she was very sweet and very innocent. She's not like Danny Herring. Danny Herring's a wild woman. She could live off the land and have children without a man somehow, because she can do it all because she's Canadian. But Ashley's innocent. She's naive. She's sweet and kind and charming, and she gives piano lessons. So I met her and I said, she asked me this. She said, "How can I get an autograph? How much is it going to cost me to get an autograph of Wyatt?" Now that's Wyatt. That's the voice you're hearing in the wilderness. It's my son. I created him from my loins, and so. I said, you should meet my son because you guys are both cool nerds. Wyatt, you're a cool nerd, yeah?
I would like to think that.
Yeah. And so I said that. And so next thing I know, I had her call in, which I didn't tell my son, and then started telling him all this stuff. And I threw him into a curveball out of left field. Let's use some more baseball references. And they started talking, and I think they've exchanged texting, and they're just being friends, right? Right?
Right?
Okay.
I don't know.
But what if it went beyond that one?
I don't know if it would.
We don't know. Nobody knows. But here's what I do know.
Oh, God. Okay, so audience, for reference, this comedic genius approached me maybe an hour and a half before the show started and asked just for any book I have that might contain some sort of quirky fact or something for us to discuss.
Okay.
Because that's sort of what this podcast is all about.
Yeah.
So go ahead, tell everyone what you found.
Okay, so
Now, let's not delay. The audience is waiting.
Okay. So here's what I said. So you and Ashley are friends now, and your dad set that up, and so, but whether it goes beyond that, that's between you two. You're grown adults.
Okay.
Maybe you can't stand each other, and you're just doing this for the audience and for the views. Maybe it's for the views. It's like those marry somebody in 24 hours shows. Maybe that's what's going on.
What views?
Just so you can get clicks.
What clicks?
On your YouTube channel.
Okay,
Wyatt Stine has no issues whatsoever.
Yeah, okay. I'll be sure to do that to all 38 people watching.
Listen, wedding
That's
feast.
worth it.
Did you know a traditional wedding feast in ancient Seram, Indonesia, included 2 baked possums, female for the bride and a male for the groom?
That's quite interesting. My first question I think I'd have to ask is why?
By the way, a Bedouin wedding feast includes egg-filled fish placed inside a chicken, which in turn is put inside a whole sheep, then roasted inside a camel.
Yeah, that's great. That's funny. I still would like to know why the possums or whatever whole thing, and why they are male and female, and why that matters.
Because they give a female one to the bride, she's the girl, and a male one to the boy.
But how do they know which one's which after they've cooked them?
So listen, did you know that married women, now listen, I'm only bringing this up because I don't know what's going to happen, but what if, let's just say you and Ashley suddenly have a whirlwind marriage? Now, I don't know.
Yeah,
what if it
okay.
came out of the blue?
Well, not serving possums, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, okay. But you can always take an egg inside of a fish, inside of a
Like sheep?
inside of a sheep, then inside of a camel.
So like, is the egg hard boiled, like in the shell, or is it like a?
I'm guessing it goes in soft and becomes hard boiled. Is my guess.
Oh.
But listen, married women live about 1,600 days longer than single women.
That is such a specific time frame. How do they calculate that exactly?
Well, have you ever met a statistician? These are not people that ever get married. They got a lot of time on their hands because
You said
nobody wants to be in their orbit. Listen,
You said 1,600 days?
Yeah.
That's 4.4 years.
married men live 3,500 days longer than single men.
3,500. Okay. That is 9.5 years.
Yes.
That is. Again, how do you calculate that? Like, what exactly is the process toward figuring out how long somebody lives compared to somebody else?
There's something else you need to know about marriage. I'm just trying to give you some advice, and just in case you and Ashley are starting to get crazy, and you're not bringing it up, you're just keeping it to yourselves. Glenn Scotty Wolf of Redlands, California, was married 29 times. Yet not one of his wives attended his funeral.
So let me just make sure I understand the situation. We have now devolved in this podcast to the point where the only real substance we have is reading random did you know facts from a Ripley's Believe It or Not book.
It's funny you should say that. A wife in ancient China could be divorced for talking too much.
I'm about to be divorced from this podcast for you talking too much.
All right, this is the last one.
Oh, it better be.
A husband in the Guerra Forest, Colombia, can divorce his wife only by wearing a mask day and night for a full year so he will emerge as a stranger.
Interesting. Now, unfortunately, Chet, we don't know who this man is, but when we find him, we'll let you know.
And listen, that means then, of course, that during the corona, hundreds of thousands of people got divorced and didn't even know why.
Yeah.
Because they've been wearing the crazy mask.
Man, that must have been awkward to talk about in the divorce settlings.
Yes, you know who didn't wear a mask? Not a mask that was bought at some cheapo Walgreens. Danny Herring. She had taken the back end of a skunk and she softly cut him apart. Not the stink sack. She left that aside. That was for her weaponry. She probably puts on the side of her homemade arrows that she makes to not only shoot the enemy, but then to stink it up so she can find it. Because sometimes those enemies keep walking, they get lost. Not with Danny. She puts the stink arrow on it so she can smell it and find it. Why?
You've been playing too many video games again, haven't you?
Well, anyways, here's what I wanted to tell you.
I knew it.
Here's the big thing that we got to know. Wyatt, we're living in a crazy world now. Have you noticed that?
No.
Yes, we are. So you're 27.
You had to think about that?
Well, I didn't want it to seem like it was so spot on. Like if I came on to like you're 27, like anytime you want to move on and get married and go.
I'm just waiting for this podcast to get funny, honestly.
Well.
Okay, go on with
I was thinking that today's podcast we would try to be a little bit more somber.
Okay, you could have told me that before we started, but go ahead.
Part of what makes somber work is you begin to sort of ease into it. It's like it becomes upon you, and you're like, oh.
So we
things feel, for example, and then you start making comments. Hey, let's go for funny, and you start realizing it feels like a somber mood.
Yeah, that's why I want it to be funny.
Right. All right. So
what's your point then? Do you want it to be somber so we can make it funny, but it's already somber, and that's the mood we're going for? Like, what's the angle you're going for here? I don't get it.
I just feel
podcast or not? What is it?
Well, sometimes, but it's also like
not this time apparently.
The interviews are always very deep.
Okay.
And
then
astonishing.
Usually because of that, we like to counter it with a more humorous opening.
We've been joking about Danny.
Okay, yeah, but let's not kid ourselves here. You're definitely stretching.
Do you know what the most dangerous bug in the world is?
Stink bug, ladybug, cicada, spider hunt bugs. Actually, are they bugs? I think spiders are bugs, but they're not insects. What's the other?
They're
arachnophobias. Yes.
Yeah, arachnids.
Did you know that there's an actual fear of being watched by ducks? Anatophobia. I'm not kidding.
Why? Why wouldn't you kid about something? This is a somber broadcast.
To be fair, it's a terrible thing to joke about. Millions of people are affected each year.
Wyatt, it's a somber reality that for some people who simply wanted to walk the park and the pond, the ducks terrify them.
I mean, have you seen a duck up close?
Yeah. Their lips are like solid.
Yeah, it's called a beak, but, you know.
Oh.
It's, you know, the reason why they named them duck is because when you see one, you yell duck, and then everybody knows to duck for cover.
From?
The ducks!
Because?
Because they are terrible. Have you seen, like, the inside of a duck's mouth?
No.
Well, not that I've but I've heard it's scary.
Well,
Actually,
you know they poop
what?
everywhere.
You know what? I'm going to look it up. I'm curious.
Maybe the duck is because when they fly over you, they poop all over you. We had a duck in the pool, and they would come back every year. This duck would come to my pool, my swimming pool. I have a little swimming pool in the back of my backyard. And these ducks would come back every stinking year, boy and a girl, every year, and go in my pool, and they like mate, and then they have the eggs, and the eggs don't. Yes, and then she hides the eggs, and then the eggs end up all disappearing, and they end up in the pool. So I realized somebody was finding their eggs and eating their eggs, and off they go, and then they leave. But we've had ducks migrate to my pool for like 5 or 6 years, Wyatt.
Okay, I was wrong. I thought it was ducks. It's geese that are terrifying.
What? So you're saying that the
Inside
people
of
aren't
them-
frightened of the gaze of a duck, but the gaze of a geese is ghastly.
No.
A
You
geese
have an
gaze is ghastly,
Look,
Wyatt.
look. You have an iPad. I want you to go onto the internet on that thing and look up goose teeth.
Are they horrific?
Look it up, my friend.
Well, I can't do it. I can barely keep this on without breaking it.
Okay, fair enough. But let me paint the picture for you.
Okay.
Not only is the entire outside lining of their beaks covered in, like, tiny needle-like teeth, their tongues are covered in teeth as well.
They
Their tongues have teeth on them.
have teeth tongues?
They have teeth tongues, yes. Why? Why do they want teeth tongues?
Yeah, but they didn't choose that. What would you think is the most dangerous bug?
Geese. Sorry, I thought you were going to say animal.
No. What do you? Well, you know what the most dangerous animal in Africa is? The one that kills the most people.
Hippos.
Yes.
Yeah, they're like, you may think they're fat, but that ain't fat, boy. That's muscle.
Yeah.
That is just like 6 tons of pure, unbridled rage and muscle.
And you know what, Wyatt? They are never satiated. They are hungry.
Yep.
Hippos.
Yep. It's, you know, a lot of people don't know, but just like popular children's songs like Ring Around the Rosie being about the Black Death,
Yeah.
Hungry Hippos is actually a tragic tale of what happens when you get too close to a hippo.
You know who wouldn't fear a hippo, Wyatt, in the wilderness?
Danny Heron?
Danny Heron. She would take it down. She would get on top and wrestle it. She'd choke it out with her bare hands. She's a mountain woman.
Wait. So she knocked out a bear, took its hands, and then used it to fight a hippo? Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. She made claw-like fighting paws. It's wilderness, son. You got to improvise.
Know what? We should call them something awesome like claws.
Paws and claws, but you're wearing the claws. Oof.
And then when you're done, you put them back in your closet.
There you go. Ah, nice. Listen, what would you say is the most dangerous bug in the world?
Oh, that's easy. Mosquito. Because they carry disease.
You're right.
Were you not thinking of that?
I wasn't thinking of that, but that's a very good point because they have malaria.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is they always say the term carry the disease. In other words, they don't have malaria. They just find it and carry it around.
They find it and carry it in the little buckets and then they dump it on you.
Weird. I didn't know they were that way. But would you say technically that mosquitoes kill more people than any other bug?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's like a well-known thing. I'll look it up, but I'm pretty sure.
What else they have?
Let me go check. Hold on.
Because I know they had malaria, but don't they also give... there was something else. It seemed like there were some other things
that
they kill people.
Hold on.
No.
Most deadliest... Yep, it's mosquito. According to the internet, it's the mosquitoes the most deadly. Oh, here we go. Top 10 deadliest insects in the world. Okay. Come on, baby. Locusts are number 10. Interesting.
Locusts.
I guess it's because they eat like crops and stuff.
Oh, so they basically make you go hungry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, number 9 is an interesting one. It's called a botfly.
Oh.
You know about them?
Is that the one that goes in and lays eggs inside of a dead thing, and then
No,
it's alive, and then the babies wake up and they burrow out of you?
Basically, yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Giant Japanese hornets clocking in at number 8. Wow. Hornet carries a toxin that leads to paralysis, kidney failure, and death.
Oof.
Ooh. And then number 7, bees.
A lot of people allergic.
Yeah. Mosquitoes on this list are number 6.
Okay.
Interesting. Number 5, fleas. I guess that makes sense for the same logic as mosquitoes.
Yes, they give you, what is it that gives you...
Lyme disease?
Lyme disease.
Yeah, Lyme disease.
Please, yeah.
Actually, one of my lowest coworkers had Lyme disease.
Really? And Lyme disease cure is on what aisle?
Oh, well, it's on aisle 29, along with the flea traps.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, I've never heard of this one before. Kissing bug. It's number 4 on the list.
Okay.
It's a blood-sucking parasite attracted to your breath. What? Okay, and the top three are all ants.
Oh.
The number 1 is the driver ant, and the first sentence in this article is, "No, they do not drive your car." Dang it! Now, how cool would it be if the number 1 most dangerous animal was just committing vehicular manslaughter?
Yeah, he's like, let me take the wheel, and then he just rides you off a cliff.
It turns out when they say most dangerous bugs, they're only referring to one specific one. Just some maniac who got the keys to a car and is just on a rampage. So, what do you think the most dangerous bug is?
I think that I probably thought the most dangerous bug would be like, like a black widow or, like
we
a...
established those were arachnids, not
Yeah,
bugs.
so they're not bugs, huh?
I don't think they are.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the difference. But I'm a techno-idiot, son. That's why I need Ripley's books to go find an interesting fact.
Techno-idiot and doesn't know what bugs are really the same thing.
What if they were robotic bugs? Then it would make sense.
Well, then you'd be a botfly.
Oh, good point. Son, what do you think is the most pressing thing happening on Earth right now that is tearing the Earth apart?
Plate tectonics.
Okay. But what human caused crazy, do you find, do your age group at 27 most fear? Like your age group, what are they most are concerned about happening on Earth or in America or whatever? Do they have concerns about what's happening on Earth and our freedoms and our ability to maintain our autonomy and our agency? I mean, is that even something you guys discuss at Lowe's, or is it just can't fit in because you guys are more concerned about the latest crescent wrench?
Taxes. That's a big one for us.
All right.
Never got those things. It's like we give you money, government, to do stuff, and then you don't do stuff.
Well, they do stuff. They just do stupid stuff.
Well, and they also don't do the stuff that they probably should be doing, like infrastructure or traffic cones.
Yeah, but at least they're allowing illegal immigrants to go to 5-star hotels, and they will pay for them to live there. I mean, that's a great use of tax dollars, don't you think? Well, don't you think Jesus would have done it that way? Like, when Jesus fed the 5,000, who knows what kind of riffraff was out there, but he loved them all and gave to them all equally, right? But
he was basically committing piracy by copying the bread and fishes. You know?
What do you mean?
That's totally piracy.
What's piracy?
So, do you not know what the definition of piracy is?
Piracy is stealing.
No, well, that's what they want to say it is.
All right.
Really, piracy is just downloading a copy of software online
Okay.
Technically, you're not stealing it because the original is still there. You're just copying it. So it's piracy.
So it's a counterfeit.
Not necessarily a counterfeit. It's a legitimate piece of software. A counterfeit usually means that it is a lesser quality bootleg version designed to...
No, that makes sense. So you didn't steal it. It's still there.
Yeah,
I just
exactly,
pirated it. So I grabbed the essence of it.
Exactly, yeah.
And I use it, but I didn't pay for it. So I'm stealing people's intellectual property.
It's like if a robber breaks into your house and steals a painting, that's stealing. But if they break into your house, see a painting, and then spend 2 hours copying it, like line for line, paint stroke for paint stroke, and then take that with them, it's weird, but not technically stealing.
Yeah, that is weird. It is weird. Guy comes in, he breaks in, he's sneaking around, and he puts up an easel. Puts up a canvas and starts going.
Are you kidding me? So, some thieves are the dumbest people I've ever seen. There was one reported instance of a guy who broke into a house, and all he did was raided the fridge for food and then fell asleep on the couch. I'm not kidding. Like, those people exist.
Well, listen, I'm glad you're not one of them. You work hard for your money, hard. You're still in school online, but you're almost finished.
Yeah, and quick aside, if you want a real case of thievery, look no further to my favorite discussion I've had with my Lowe's employee associates in a while. We were discussing basically credit cards, because one of the employees here was, I think, trying to put a down payment on a house, but she needed 2 lines of credit because she was otherwise untrustworthy of a creditor. Which and then the conversation devolved into like credit scores, and oh my goodness, that has to be like the biggest scam I've ever heard of in my life. Credit scores. Do you? I mean, I'm sure you know what a credit score is.
I do.
And how stupid they are. In principle, you're telling me that it is a better show of my ability to pay you back to be in debt to multiple people than it is to have proven I've paid off my debts to multiple people.
You know what?
I don't get that. I don't get that.
You know Karen Boyd.
Oh, okay. Well, just ignoring my...
No, I'm not ignoring your son, but it's something just hit me. She corrected us.
Okay.
She said that fleas are not what gives you Lyme disease. It's ticks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Doesn't that...
Well, that ticks me off.
Why?
Well, because I thought I did a pretty cool thing with the whole flea, like Lyme disease gimmick. Because I had to think about what disease they carry, and I thought I got it right. But I'm not.
Well, you failed, and she let you know it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're learning about our audience, Wyatt, every Monday, is that they're smart, and they don't take no guff. And if we're wrong, they let us know. That we're here for their entertainment, Wyatt. We're like trained ponies. They just want to watch us crash, burn. It's a train wreck.
I don't think anyone trains ponies to watch them crash. You're thinking of trains.
Yeah, but they used to have in the circus, they'd have diving horses that would get up 10, 20 feet, and a guy would stand on, and they would jump off into the water. Now, that was a trained horse. Did you know they did that?
I didn't know that horses did that. I know people do that.
No. They had horses that could do that.
What do you think is going through that horse's mind as they're up there about ready to get the cue to jump into a pool of water? Are they thinking, you know what? Mom was right. I should have been an accountant.
Maybe at this point in their life, once they got over the fact that for whatever reason, this biped keeps jumping on my back and making me walk him around, I didn't know that was what I was signing up for when I was born, but I guess if this is the way the world works, then jumping off a cliff into the water, what difference does it make? I mean, maybe at this point they've accepted their lot in life, right? And do you think we should...
Or maybe, just maybe, that horse is so sick of living in that circus that it keeps trying to jump off a cliff, but those pesky humans keep saving it with a pool of water.
Okay, so you're saying it's trying to end it all, and
It's trying to end it all, and it just can't.
It's
It's actually a tragic breakdown of their character, really. Very Shakespearean. Very Shakespearean.
well, it is, and
Yes, of course.
And I think that for horses, for anything, they have, like humans, they need meaning in their life. Now, I don't think that animals have a sense of awareness of themselves outside of other objects. I don't think that, like humans have a soul. We're able to sort of know that we exist, and we are not the tree, we're not the sun. We're separate entities. And we have an agency, ability to make decisions and alter and do things with the environment that we're put into. I don't know that animals have that. I mean, some animals can kind of make crude tools, I guess. I think monkeys maybe make things, or they can figure out a rock and break a coconut, I think. Danny Heron would use a rock to break a coconut. She would have fashioned a saw that she had made out of the ribs and notches of a elk that she had captured with a trap, a netting, or perhaps even vines that she had woven to grab their hooves and grab them and to bring them to the ground. And then slit their throat. And why she wouldn't just slit the throat. She would capture the blood and use it. You know, you can use that. Have you ever heard of blood pudding? You can eat it, and it can be good for you. But she has to be able to take care of herself. She lives in Upper Canada. Why? What do you think it's going to take for this country to get back on track, to be free again? Do you think we have a shot at finding our liberties again that seem to have vanished as we watch every day the Constitution being breached, our sovereignty being overrun? Nobody is doing anything about it. And the only one that could would be Republican senators and congressmen, and they do nothing. So they're in on it. They're in on the fix, or they're compromised because they have videotape of them doing something with 4-year-olds. I mean, what else would cause this lunacy, this shutting down of our ability to create our own oil and our own gas, our own energy, and going towards green energy that has never worked, doesn't work. Nobody wants, I just saw an article, nobody wants these electric cars, and the cobalt and the things that are manufactured for the batteries is basically slave labor in Africa. I mean, it is so absurd, and the death, backwards, taking a civilization and making us go back into the Middle Ages. Literally, it is so crazy. It must be like demonic. It has to be a spiritual battle, because it doesn't make any sense. There's nothing normal or cohesive about this, but they are literally trying to destroy our country and no longer allow us to be sovereign and free, but to be run by those in Europe who've deemed themselves the rulers of the rest of us. And you know who I really find a hard time with? Why? Bill Gates.
Why him specifically?
Because he is the epitome of the Dunning-Kruger effect, and that is people who are an expert in one field suddenly think they're experts in everything. This guy believes that we need to alter the weather. He literally believed we needed to dim the sun and was looking in and investing in research. This is a guy that believes that he is the one that wanted to make sure everybody gets vaccinated. That's just, of course, a few years prior when he bought patents to some vaccinations, and then suddenly this vaccination was necessary. People of that have that kind of money know things, Wyatt, that you and I will never know. They really are megalomaniacs. They got so rich, and they can never spend this money, that they believe they can literally rule the world, and because they kind of do. They kind of do. They make rules. They tell princes and presidents what to do in countries, and they say, yes, sir. As long as you give us money and give us what we need to survive, we'll give you whatever you want. And it becomes evil. A deep, arrogant pride that states, I got so much money in a business that I literally know everything about everything, and I'm just going to decide how the world's going to run, and I'm going to fund it. He's the biggest landowner in the United States of farmland, which means he wants to control what we can eat. This is a guy that thinks we're going to be eating bugs, and they want to get rid of, the flatulent creating steer. So now, keep in mind, this man will never, ever in his life not eat meat or fly in a jet or live on a private island that's stocked up for 200 years that he can live free and safe, and probably has a surgeon on hand that he just pays to be there all the time. And he will never suffer, never, ever, ever, ever live by that which he's demanding the rest of us live by. So yeah, I find that despicable. I never, Wyatt, in my life resented billionaires or millionaires. Never. I thought, good for you, man. I think you're an inspiration. I want to do that next. But what they've become, these technocrats, these oligarchs who've come together, combined their money, and then have combined the ability to force people to vote certain ways, to steal voting, to manufacture races so that their point of view is forced down the public's back. And again, they live in gated communities. They never suffer. They never suffer for what they're creating on the rest of us. That's just evil to me. That's just evil people to me. And, the God of the universe, there will be a judgment day for these people, and it will be deep. And it should be. It should be, because it's evil. Now, I hope they repent. I wish they would use their incredible goods for good, and not with some leftist agenda, but just, actually do good things, like get gas, natural gases to these third world countries so these people don't freeze to death, or that they can have air conditioning in the heat, instead of saying, no, you don't get gas. And for these people who are just beginning to get the opportunity for cheap energy so they don't have to burn dry dung or all the other horrible contaminants that these people have to do to survive and keep warm. And suddenly they could have air conditioning or they could have heat. But they need gas, and suddenly, we got to get rid of gas. So they're killing these people. It's just mind-boggling. Why? It bothers me. Not like a tick, or a Lyme disease-ridden flea, and come to find out they don't even do it, or these crazy mosquitoes who never get sick, but they carry the sickness everywhere they go. Maybe the only way we fix these things is when God just puts an end to it all. Maybe he just gets tired of us. Why? He did it once with the ark. He just got tired of us. Maybe that's where we're going next. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I will say this. Today I got to have a great conversation with somebody who is going to help me make a couple sketches. I told you guys for a long time that I wanted to have more material to put out into the atmosphere and help build this podcast as well as my live events, where I speak about truth. I speak about what's happening in my country simply because I'm here, I'm responsible for my territory. And so I told you that I want to try to build this into a more interesting, robust podcast, almost like a television show. I just want to get creative. This is what God gave me, the ability to create. So I want to make it interesting and sophisticated and funny and artistic. And I hope influential, that people are moved by it, that they are challenged by the things that we say. Yeah, we joke at first because we should be able to laugh and have joy and have happiness too, because God gives us the ability to laugh. But without God, we really can't survive, and without God's principles, we simply are going to burn. I mean, this is an age-old truth. You walk away from the Creator's mandates and start making human mandates, and it becomes a nightmare. If you're out there and you're interested in what I'm doing as a comic, as an actor, if you've seen the jingle smells they've been getting a lot of press about lately. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's on Rumble, and it's funny, it's sweet, it's simple. Listen, it's not a masterpiece. You're not going to win an Oscar. But it's just cute and fun, and you can watch it with your family, and it's got a sweetheart to it. And there's some fun with me and Ben Davies, the lead actor. We had some fun scenes together. I think you enjoy it. But if you'd like to help us build this, you can. I'm looking for partners, and the partners are part of the militia of the mind, people who need to realize that if you're not going to be helped by the government who promised to do so, you're going to have to do it yourself with God's help and with your fellow peasants. A peasant's revolt. That's what the militia of the mind is. If you want to be part of that, go to bradstine.com and you can join. Just give them your email address so I can contact you if I get kicked off these other platforms. But it's $3 a month, so it's very cheap, but it allows us a little bit of income to try to slowly but surely develop some more interesting programming that goes as to part of this, but also to do things out into the atmosphere. I'm going to be in Albuquerque this Wednesday at Calvary Chapel, Skip Heitzig's church. Love Skip. And I'll be there this Wednesday night. If you are in Albuquerque, come see me. I'll be there. Come out and enjoy it. I'm also got some shows coming up in January already. I think January 5th I'm going to be in Moline, Illinois at a church. You can go on bradstein.com and see where I'm going to be. But if you want to help grow this into something that is fighting for truth and reality, join the militia of the mind, be part of the mighty 10,000, which are the first 10,000 people that join the militia. You're going to have access to special stuff. Now, just to let you know, we've already started compiling special guest answers that you don't get to see because it's on the back side of Bradstein Has Issues, where you pay the $3 a month to get these extra things. But there'll also be other stuff. This is where we're going to be able to sign up, and you're going to be able to be interviews and watch live and maybe even ask guests questions, but we're going to run it while you guys can watch. You're going to be able to ask questions. You're going to be able to see certain things. And for certain gradations of your donation, it is donation. This is a ministry, so it is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. And this is December. It's your last month to get a tax break if you believe in what I'm doing. So give. You can give to my ministry or you can give to the podcast itself. And you don't have to. I'll always be here for free, but it will allow you to have special access to special things, but also just to join with us and say, we're going to fight together, we're going to die together. And we're going to do it laughing all the way to heaven, I hope. So listen, I got a special guest on, Wyatt. This guy is somebody I've known for many, many years. He really has a really unique charity that he goes out and helps some very, very interestingly, people that have been put into very difficult scenarios on the world stage. Things you've heard about, things you've watched on the news. The friends this guy has, the people he's connected to, it's so weird. It's so odd. And I said this on the interview. You're either a con man and you're fake, or you are the most interesting guy in the world because who he's connected to. It's crazy. And you're about to find that out. You're going to love what he does. You're going to love what he's about. You're going to love what he stands for. We're going to talk about how we met, and we're going to talk a lot about Andrew Breitbart, who was something that first connected him and I, because I was going to begin to connect with Breitbart, and then, of course, he died. So this was kind of flashing back to a conservative icon, Andrew Breitbart. But this guy is going to really, I think, intrigue you, inspire you, and tell you what you can do to go out and help change the world, literally. His name is Jason Jones, and, well, he's just got such a great heart for philanthropy and altruism and helping the people in the darkest of places, trafficked people, slave people, people in countries where they are Christian minorities and things that are happening to them, and Muslim minorities that are being butchered in China, the Uyghur Muslims. Christians take care of and help everybody, including their enemies. That's what makes it unique and special and true. It's the only religion in world history that demands you set yourself aside for the sake of others, even when those others hate you. It's what makes it beautiful, unique, and it's a way to represent God that no other religion demands, because no other religion has what we have. Jesus, the guy that was celebrated this month as being born, even though he wasn't born December 25th. But we use this month as a celebration of the greatest story in human history. God Almighty dimensionalized himself, became one of us so he could be seen. And then he would die so that we could be with him forever. That's how much he loved us. Folks, this is what the Christmas season is all about. Thank you for jumping on with me and Wyatt. But now we're going to jump over into this very special interview with somebody that I think you're going to enjoy. Please welcome my friend, Jason Jones.
You know, you're so lucky that you guys have me as a host. I really wish I had a podcast I could go to and watch me, but I can't because I'm stuck being me. But the one thing that I've always tried to do that I think is most unique, that was my daughter, so I don't have to listen. I've heard her for like 23 years. Enough. But I do try to bring on eclectic guests, as you know, and I've had some very interesting people on. But the particular guest I'm bringing on today is he's kind of unique. All of my people are unique, but he's even more so unique because, to be honest, I can't pin him down. Every time I think I know what he's up to, he's on to something else. And if you first met him and he told you what he was, doing or putting together, you think this guy's making this up because it's crazy. He's always involved in something crazy, and yet, nevertheless, there he goes, and he is accomplishing great things. Some people would call him an activist. I don't know if that's pejorative or if he would concur, but he will be the first activist I've had on Brett Stine Has Issues. But more than that, I know he's a man of God. He's a virtuous man, and he's a warrior. And if anything is necessary in the West right now, it's warriors. Religious freedom speakers and absolute unapologetic commitment to truth and reality in this day and age. So I bring to you an old friend, a unique friend that you're going to get to know and like, and you need to follow and help him in his endeavors. Please welcome, as I find the proper button, Jason Jones. Hey, brother. How are you, Jason?
Brad Stine, it's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I always have to, I always meet great guys like you, but I never get to watch what I'm up to. So I don't know if it's working. I don't know if anybody's paying attention, but apparently they are because they keep coming back. But, I'm just grateful that you had time because, dude, you are a busy man. The first time I remember meeting you, and I want to get this squared away because I was trying to figure this out. Man, it was years ago, but was it with Movie to Movement? Is that kind of what?
Yeah, so my organization has two programs. People kind of think they're different, but they're just two programs with the same organization. And I believe it was right before our dear friend Andrew Breitbart passed away. It was maybe weeks before or days before. And I remember being excited meeting you and thinking, I don't know if you remember this, but I said, Andrew has a new reality show he's developing. And I just think you'd be great to be on this reality show. I remember either wanting to connect you with Andrew or someone else. And then Andrew had passed away. We had met at the, which is one of my favorite places in the world, at the Grand Ole Opry, at the Opryland Hotel. And I remember right where we met on the little bridge by the waterfall where we were talking. And it was quite some time ago.
Yeah, it was at NRB, I think.
It was at NRB.
And you were, was it with John Sullivan? Maybe he was doing.
Was it Obama? 2016 Obama's America, or we worked on so many movies together. I forget.
I think it was Expelled.
Expelled. What a great movie! Yeah, it was maybe Expelled, and that movie is just a special movie.
So let's start with, and I've never really asked this particular question before because it didn't necessarily come up, but let's start with me because I one thing I remember about you is that you were familiar with what I did, and that's always humbling. I mean, I guess you would suspect that somebody would hang on, buddy, I'm interviewing somebody. I would suspect that, maybe people would know what I do. I'm in the entertainment industry, but nevertheless, you don't know how many people are paying attention, but you seem to be aware of my of my vibe, and you liked it. And I didn't know until we got to know each other that we had the same worldview. We were fighting the same battles, and so here we sat. But I wondered if you could just give me a background. I'm curious. So
Well,
how did you know about what I was
well,
doing?
first of all, I'm a huge fan of stand-up. And, you know, I wasn't a Christian until I was 30. And this is probably, you may get this more than most, or maybe I'm totally off base. But a lot of your audience is not going to want to Google my, you know, one of my favorite comics. But one of my favorite stand-ups is Paul Mooney.
Oh,
And what I like about Paul, you know, he was a freedom rider. I got to know him a bit, and you know, I get to know Dave Chappelle a bit. We have a lot of friends in common. Got to spend time with him on his property during COVID when he was doing his shows. And I was always a fan of yours. And you remind me of Paul in a way, like you're a Christian, but there is a fire. Like you have a bit of a fire, almost a touch of anger at injustice. I see in you. I thought I saw in you. You want to make people laugh. You're a comedian. You're a Christian, but you also have a sore spot. Like I think that you don't like injustice, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to introduce you to Andrew Breitbart, because Andrew hated bullies, and so that's what I saw in you. I was a fan of yours. I think stand-up comedians are the best. Like it's the hardest thing to do in the world. They're humble people, they're empathetic people. And so, so when I met you, when I met you, as you probably noticed, I was a fan of yours.
yeah.
And I was just excited to get to meet you.
But vice versa, because, you know, you had such a great, I guess ministry, or do you call it your charity business, philanthropy?
Apostolate, yeah.
I don't know how you even reference yourself in what you do, because you got fingers in a lot of pies, and maybe not. I mean, they all kind of go to the same direction about justice, about protecting the innocent, the downtrodden, the vulnerable. Is certainly your thing, but you certainly have found unique artistic ways to do that, and out of the box things, and successfully so, because like I said, and I meant this when I was introducing you, Jason, you have such an eclectic means of engaging culture that you almost would feel like this guy's either really interesting and really is able to conquer a lot of ground, or he's a con man, because it's too much. And it's crazy. It's not just like I'm helping somebody dig wells. It's like I'm in Antarctica, and I went to the.
You know, as a con man, what I love about working in Antarctica is no one will ever be able to verify how many wells are there.
Right.
So
well, they'll hit the ice wall.
1,000 wells in Antarctica.
They'll hit the ice wall and find out that the Earth's flat. So,
Exactly.
But anyway, so kind of circling back. So I wasn't trying to, you know, and I appreciate that you like my work. Clearly, and I do. It's humbling, and I'm grateful. But I wasn't trying to get some accolades. I was just curious how you knew me, because but that was my recollection. Was this guy really likes what I do? I'm like, how does he even know me? And maybe it was YouTube clips. I don't even know how.
Yeah, you know. Well, this was so for people watching, this was pre really Facebook, or definitely Instagram, TikTok, and all of that. I just, like a lot of people, like, look, the nature of my work is sorrowful. I think the nature of my work also, I always say it's an empathy building exercise. Like what I do for a living, like what you do for a living, is a spiritual exercise.
Yeah.
And but no, I'm a big fan of stand-up generally, and I will say, there's not, at the time at least, there weren't a lot of what we would call Christian stand-ups that I was a big fan of, but I was a big fan of yours. And again, what I liked about you is the spiritedness. There was a rawness and a spiritedness that I feel like we move on the same wavelength.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I will say this, it's interesting you talked about it, because I definitely, as an artist, as a human, you grow, you evolve, you adapt, right? You try to be relevant, you try to be valuable, I hope. So even me looking back at some of my older material, you know, I would say to you, Jason, ultimately, communication has no value if nobody's listening. It doesn't matter what great story you have to tell. It doesn't matter what great charity you're involved with. It doesn't matter what wonderful philanthropy you're doing. If nobody knows, it's not doing the work that you want it to do. When you're and I'm sure people right now are a little like going, well, what's this guy do? Because we haven't even figured it out.
Yes.
What are you guys talking about? But I think the idea of the Andrew Breitbart should give them a clue. And I don't know if you remember this, but that first meeting, but not only did you think I might be a good fit for them, but you said, you know, and I knew Andrew Breitbart. I didn't know him personally. Certainly at that time, conservatives were starting to realize what was happening to us in culture, and that we were being shut out, and that we were being censored, and that our freedoms were being stripped away, and we weren't allowed to speak freely, and we weren't given equal access to the table of ideas, which is what American means. And America was supposed to mean. So I knew of Andrew Breitbart, like, oh, he's the general, man. This dude is getting it done. Holy smoke. And you called him and said, I want you to talk to him. I'm like, well, you got to be kidding me. You're just going to call Andrew? And he picks up the phone. So that's the kind of grease you had. He just picked it. Yeah, what's going on?
You know, Brett, I have ADHD. So if I say to someone, you need to meet someone, if I'm not like doing it right then, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, well, you did. And I talked to him. And I talked to him for a while. It's like, man, great to meet you. I really love what you're doing.
He was a fan of yours, if you remember. Like
me, I guess. I mean, I don't know if he was, or if he, or if you persuaded him to at least give me a look. But he was interested in doing something. And I think he, at that time, maybe had been dabbling with Steven Crowder, might have been involved with him a little bit. A few guys that were.
Oh, they were very close. Yeah, they were very, very close. Yeah. He would. My office was in Glendale, and Crowder's office, his studio was in Glendale. And so Andrew would always come and hang out with me, and before he would do Crowder, and my staff would be mesmerized because Andrew Breitbart. You know, I wrote his obituary for Breitbart.com, and in it, I said meeting him is like meeting Bob Marley or Bruce Lee. Like, that's the only way I can put it. There's just no way to kind of explain Andrew Breitbart or Billy Idol. He was so full of life, so creative, so intelligent, no affectation.
Yeah.
Loved people, full of justice.
Yeah.
Just a very special man.
Well, and I will say this, and this was something in that conversation that stuck with me. So we're talking about, hey, let's do some stuff, and I'm going, you got to be kidding me. This is an amazing connection. Yes, I would love to. I'm a stand-up. There's nobody doing it like this, so I'm sure should be a place that we can work together with, because I have a flavor you don't have that might be of benefit somehow, and I could learn from you, right? And I talked about the liberals. Now, at that time, I would speak about liberals instead of what I now speak of as the left. And I learned that from Dennis Prager. There's a major difference between a liberal who we used to think was our enemies, and now we realize, no, they were your friends. They didn't agree with you, but they believed in free speech. They didn't agree with you, but they believed that you and them were supposed to persuade each other and put the ideas out into the atmosphere and let people decide. They didn't agree with you, but they dignified you. They didn't agree with you, but they were civil. That was a liberal. They're gone. It's left now. It's Marxist now. It's communist now. It's totalitarian now. It's despot now. It's oligarchs now. It's megalomaniacs now. It's demons now. There is no room for any dissent. You will bow to Baal. And this is what happened. Well, at that time, I guess I was naive enough to think that maybe we can find some common ground. And I said, look, I joke about these guys, and I am a right-leaning conservative Christian comic, yes, but I'm sophisticated about it. I'm not churchy, and it comes out of mainstream comedies. I worked on the biggest clubs in this country, so I can compete with those guys. But I'm coming from a very particular point of view, but maybe we can try to find some common ground. Give them some benefit of the doubt, whatever. He said something to that effect. He said, "I hate him." And I thought it was more of a, I hate those guys. Jason, he was serious. He said, "I hate them. I don't give them one pass. I don't give them anything. They're evil." Well, now that I look at the world, and as a conservative, one of the things we conserve is wisdom and history, so we can make observations and draw conclusions. It's a little delicate. As a Christian, I'm commanded to love my enemies and pray for those that despitefully use me. But the ideas of the left, I hate. I despise it. It's wicked. It's demonic. It's cancer. And it's killing us. It's killing America. It's killing Western civilization, Judeo-Christian ethics and morals and standards. And so he was on to something. And so do you feel, this might be a loaded question, but I might as well say it. Do you feel confident that his death was legitimate, or do you think there could have been something nefarious involved?
I'm friends with the family, and I think that that's something that I probably wouldn't feel comfortable talking too much about, but I will say this. Andrew did have a heart problem. But then, the coroner tech that did his autopsy died of poisoning the week he submitted his report. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe. What I will say is he was probably the most consequential Gen Xer. He will be. That he died at 43 years old, but there will we're Gen X. There will be nobody that comes from our generation that will have a greater impact on our republic than a Jewish kid from Brentwood, who loved movies and 80s punk. And why Andrew, I've never had that anger, that hatred that Andrew had. And the reason why I believe he had it is because he had this sense of justice. He was his sort of inciting incident that woke him up from being a left kid on the left to being a conservative was watching the mainstream media brutalize a black man for not going along with the program, and that was Clarence Thomas.
Oh,
that's what woke Andrew up, just watching how Clarence Thomas was just treated so unjustly. So Andrew, again, he had this sense of justice. There's this famous scene in a movie where Andrew's yelling at they weren't Antifa at the time. What were they called? There's a mob that descended on Andrew's hotel to harass him, and Andrew's yelling at him.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm right off camera, and there was a point where I said, "Andrew, brother, just look at them and know that they were brutalized by an ideology, that they were raised in broken families, that we have to have empathy for them." And Andrew looked at me like I was crazy, and he's like, "They're evil. They want to destroy us." And what it was is Andrew wanted to put a tourniquet on the wound. He really did love them because, he would say, "I hate them," but, he would talk to everybody. He had friendships all across the aisle, and he was a very passionate guy. And it's interesting, again, as somebody who my entrance into politics was through, and I suffered a great act of injustice, and hence why I liked Paul Mooney. Why, as a young man, I was really inspired by Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. Andrew, witnessing all these acts of injustice as a young man, it would be interesting to see who he would have grown to be. Mm-hmm. If you see the trajectory of Muhammad Ali, who started out in the Nation of Islam, advocating a very strange sort of black nationalism, who grew to be just a very humane, great American leader. You saw Malcolm X as he was beginning that progress um, gunned down. And Andrew, to me, is just one of those guys. And he saw before all of us. A friend of mine who's a black guy, him and I have a lot of conversations about sort of the racialism on the young right and how much it scares me. The rise of this racialism on the young right or alt-right or whatever you want to call it. And he said, Jason, what you don't understand is that these boys have been brutalized because they're boys, brutalized because of they're white. And you need to have the same sympathy for them that you would have for a young Malcolm X or Muhammad Ali, who were attracted to sort of these racialist ideologies, but then grew to be humane men, broad, loving, kind men. What Andrew saw before everyone was how the youth in this country were just being treated so unjustly by these ideologues. And so that's, I hope I'm not losing the audience if it's too in the weeds.
No. I think it's important.
This is who Andrew is, man. And
yeah,
you know, when him and I never talked about politics, we talked about music, punk music, reggae music, movies, baseball. He was a huge baseball fan. Like, he was just always talking about baseball. To Andrew, politics it would be hard for people to believe. It was not why we lived. Politics was not why we lived. It was a necessary evil that Mordor was crashing in on the Shire. So we had to go to Mordor to save the Shire. You know, what Andrew wanted to talk about was music, baseball, family, his wife, Susie. This is what we never really ever talked politics together.
Well, is he a Dodger fan?
You know, he was, I believe.
I just wondered, since he was in LA. Well,
yeah,
so
he was, and him and his best friend Larry. And I will tell you, I'm not a baseball fan, so I would just listen to him and Larry. We'd be like in a 5-hour car ride somewhere, and for 5 hours they're just going back and forth like we're 12 years old in a sandlot.
Yeah.
And so that's who Andrew Breitbart is to me.
Well, so, you know, we ended up sort of talking about him, and I'm glad because he deserves to be remembered. And you know, this is a very organic podcast. I like to be kind of legitimate, conversational, but more importantly, you know, to me, I said this from many, many times. I'm not interested in having a podcast that states, you know, aren't we great because we're conservatives, and look at these idiots, and can you believe they said that, and what would have happened if one of us had said, who cares? We all know the game is rigged. We know how it all works now. I don't care about anything I speak about unless I'm educating people, inspiring them, and then more than anything, hope that they bring it into the marketplace of their sphere of influence and do something. If we're not doing something, it's irrelevant. I don't need to wring my hands, and I don't need to find out that there is injustice. That's clear. What do we do about it? How do we fix it? So let's sort of put the brakes on here just for a moment and do what is now the important thing, and that is to introduce you as Jason Jones. So they've just heard your heart a little bit. They heard who you were involved with, and there's certainly more people they're about to find out that you're involved with. But more importantly, quickly, and you'll notice I don't do a typical bio on everybody. I've had a million of those read about me. I don't want to hear it. I just kind of cut to the chase. If I'm friends with somebody, I just talk to them like people, but let them define themselves, because nobody can really explain to somebody who they are like you. So first, Jason, just tell the people quickly, in whatever way you want to, who you are and what your purpose is. What is this thing that is burning in your heart you talked about that has made you become the activist and or the social justice warrior? Sounds like that's a loaded term now, that you've become. Who are you? Who's Jason Jones?
Yeah, well, thanks, Brad. So, you know, I do really one thing. My mission is to defend the vulnerable from violence, and we do it by promoting human dignity and inspiring solidarity. My organization, the Human Rights Education Relief Organization, founded in 2002, has 2 programs: Movie to Movement, which produces and promotes movies to tell the truth about the human person, our incomparable dignity, beauty, and worth. So every film or every movie project I've ever worked on, I've worked with studio pictures, docs, shorts, features, what's won some of the biggest film festivals in the world. And the films may seem to, you know, have sort of a diversity, but at the end of the day, when I look to a film, I say, does this communicate the incomparable dignity and beauty of the human person. Francis Schaeffer talked about sort of the pre-evangelism we have to do in today's society. People don't know who they are, and I want people to know that they're made in the image and likeness of God, and I think film is a powerful way to do that. Maybe if I was 17 today, I got the idea from our organization as a young man in college, and I wanted to use film. As a young man in college, I thought of how we could harness film. Maybe today I would look to shorter media content or podcasting. But for our generation, there was nothing more powerful than film. And then the Vulnerable People Project, it's to defend the vulnerable from violence, from the child in the womb in the United States and in the West, to the Uyghur and Chinese occupied East Turkestan. And this is where I think it comes, you say, like, if you heard what we were doing, Jason was doing, you might think he's lying. My wife says, honey, when someone asks you at a dinner party what you did this week at work, don't tell them. She's like, please don't tell them, because you sound like you're lying or like you're bragging or like you're crazy or all the above. And so at VPP, our mission is very simple. We are a Christian human rights organization. There are a lot of human rights organizations in the world. But I think as a Christian, I want to stand with those people, whether it's the child in the womb and a teenage mother in Gary, Indiana. I want to stand with that mother and her child. Whether it's a Christian in Nigeria, a Christian family in Nigeria, a Muslim Uyghur in East Turkestan, Chinese occupied East Turkestan. I believe that as a Christian, I want to stand with those the world has forgotten and shunned, whether it's the Christians in Artsakh, the Armenians that were just ethnically cleansed from Artsakh. We work closely with the Armenian community. Just today, spent the whole day, we're developing a documentary to tell the story on the ethnic cleansing of a Christian community that has been there since the first century and is now gone. So that's where it may seem a little different, the work that we do. But that the heart of what I do is I really think this about myself. This is going to sound strange, but I'm a high school dropout. I joined the Army the day I turned 17. I was a teen parent. I was last in my class before I dropped out of high school. Went to the Army, ended up going to college. I've been blessed in ways. But I think I'm kind of like just a loser. I think I don't have a lot of natural gifts. But God has given me, even though I didn't become a Christian until I was 30, I've always felt like I've been given just unimaginable opportunities that I don't deserve. And I just think of all the wonderful, beautiful people, the families that are struggling and are suffering. And that's who I want to stand with.
Yeah.
So I want to leverage every opportunity I've ever been given for the child in the womb, for the Christians in Nigeria and Artsakh, for the Uyghur in East Turkestan. That's my apostolate. David Mamet, the great playwright, said that writers write because their teeth itch. Well, I'm sorry, writers write for the same reason beavers gnaw on wood, because their teeth itch. So, writing stops their teeth from itching. The idea that 9 out of 10 Christians this year who will be murdered in Nigeria. The idea that the widows and orphans of our Afghan allies who fought alongside of us in Afghanistan for 2 decades will be freezing to death in a horrible winter. That makes my teeth itch. So the work that my organization does in some way stops my teeth from itching. That's it. Our Lord kissed lepers. Our Lord stood with a woman caught in adultery 2,000 years ago. What pastor today would stand with a woman caught in adultery? Who would do that? Who would do that? Right. We say the church is a hospital for sinners. I'd say sometimes we become a euthanasia clinic.
Yeah.
What? Bring her in. She was caught in adultery, euthanize her. Right. This pastor cheated on his wife, bring him in, euthanize him. Yeah, that's it. That's what it is, Brad. That's what I want to do. I'll say this winter, it's the 3rd winter since the U.S. abandoned our allies in Afghanistan. We deliver coal all across Afghanistan to the widows and orphans of our allies that were abandoned, to Christians and other minorities. And we were doing the numbers. You talk about like, is this guy telling the truth? We actually fudged the numbers down. We think we delivered enough coal to provide over 100 million hours in heat over the past 2 years in our Coal for Christmas campaign. Santa gives coal to bad boys and girls. We give coal to good boys and girls. We're publicly saying it's 30 million just because we want the number to seem believable. And we deliver this coal by donkeys, I think, we've rescued religious orders in the past 3 years of nuns from 3 different war zones, Ukraine, Afghanistan, and now Sudan this year. So we get to do some, sometimes it catches people sideways what we're doing, but it's just very simple. We're standing with those that larger human rights organizations will say that the compliance lawyers will tell them no. The stakeholders, board members will say they're too risky. That's where my little organization comes in, and we say, we've got this.
Okay, name the organization again. Just say it again, because I want to put a clip up of your a link to your.
Well, the program I'd like to highlight today is the Vulnerable People Project, which is a program of H.E.R.O Inc. And Movie to Movement is another program. We have several programs, but VPP, a lot of folks think it's a standalone organization. It's the vulnerablepeopleproject.com. And you can see the work we do in Nigeria. We're providing physical security to Christian and Jewish communities facing Islamist extremism. In Afghanistan, we're providing security for girls' schools. We're distributing coal and food. In ARTSOC, we've been advocating for the Armenian Christians in Gaza, in Israel, and we're preparing to bring in aid to the Christian communities in Gaza. So we look to do the work that, it's very simple. We want to stand with the most vulnerable people in the world during their most challenging times. When the large organizations show up, we're very happy to bow out. But we're there until they arrive.
Well, and what I think is wonderful is that you do help those in need, irrespective of if they're a believer in Christ or Allah. The Uyghur. I don't know if I mispronounced it. The Uyghur.
You actually pronounced it right. Like I say Uyghur because colloquially that's how we say it, but it's Uyghur. The way you say it is, we don't have that sound, but he pronounced it correctly.
But I remember hearing of them, and they're Muslims, and I don't know that I knew that initially. So I'm thinking, I've got to protect my Christian brothers and sisters, and then they're Muslims, and full disclosure, I'm a little less concerned initially, like, it's Muslims. Oh well, it's like, wait a minute, what is it? Are you Jesus guy or not? That's the point. Anybody can take care of their own if they do, but at least that makes sense. But to go,
and we should take care of our own first, right? Like if we go around helping Muslims and Yazidis and we abandon our own Christians, that's a little suspect.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a little strange. But we should leave no one outside. I had a donor, you'll appreciate this, Brad, a major donor got upset with me saying we spent too much time and energy helping Muslims and that we should focus on Christians. I said I would really, really prefer personally to focus on Christians. But the only problem is we're a Christian organization, so we can't do that. Does that make sense? We're a Christian organization. So, I look at the communities we serve. It's really spectacular. We work closely with the Yazidis. The Yazidi are in Iraq. ISIS tried to wipe them off the face of the earth. The Yazidi are the proto-Semitic people. Christians, Jews, and Kurds descend from the Yazidi. We talk about the Abrahamic faiths. Abraham was Yazidi. The people he left, they still exist.
Where are they located?
In Iraq.
Right.
And they have a pre-Christian religion, pre-monotheistic, pre-Judaism religion. It's had several reformations and changes, but at the heart of it, they believe in a numinous reality with all these emanations. And the Muslims call, in the region, even Christians and Jews and Muslims will say they're devil worshippers. This is something they've said about the Yazidi forever. And it comes because they believe in these angels, and one of the angels that they have to perform petitionary prayer, not prayers of petition, but prayers of sort of obligation, looks a lot like how we would portray Satan. So they suffer this kind of horrible calumny, and it's a misunderstanding of their religion. And, the locals in Iraq would just be taken aback when I would go into their little temples and I would pray. And of course I would pray the blood of Jesus over Iraq, and that God would bless these people. These people, the Jews and Muslims come from, the Jews and Arabs come from them. And then we're helping the Arab Christians, we're serving Arab Christian populations. These populations were actually, from the very first century, their families converted to Christianity. And those were Jewish families. They were Arab Jews, that we would call, but they converted to Christianity in the first century. A lot of Palestinian Christians are really the descendants of the church that James was the head of. So it's really unbelievable, and we stand and we work to defend the Jews from Jewish attacks of anti-Semitic hatred. But this is really the gospel.
Yeah.
Even Islam teaches this in the Hadith. It is said that Muhammad said that whenever you're in trouble, you can always count on the Christians to defend you. And we have so many people have come to Jesus Christ through our work, but we never proselytize. I say that when a fireman pulling someone out of a burning building isn't going to try to proselytize. When we're taking women out of, an ISIS, when they're liberated from an ISIS camp, and they were being raped to steal their religion and culture from them, I'm not going to love bomb them. But what happens is over time, as you build these authentic relationships, people will ask you about Jesus Christ. They will ask you, why do you do what you do? I recently had somebody, I don't want to say the country, but we were helping this family in a religion that's not Christianity, in a country that to become a Christian is very dangerous. I've never once proselytized them. And they asked me, how do they get baptized? And I had said, well, I don't know if I'm the one to answer that question for you, because I don't want you to think that we're caring for you as a tactic to convert you. I want, obviously I'm a Christian, and so you can imagine what that means. I'm an Orthodox Christian believer. But the nature of my organization is to take care of the temporal life of these human beings, inspired by the Christian teaching of the human person. And of course, we hope, of course, I obviously hope that our work of our apostolate inspires them and to Jesus to accept Jesus Christ. This is, of course, our desire.
Well, so you said initially, I'm a high school dropout. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm an idiot. So I don't know how any of this has happened. I'm grateful. Well, okay. So that's what I'm interested in. Not only your heart, that's clear and crucial. But you know what? Every Christian if you're a Christian long enough, you know what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
You know Christianese, churchianity, you know how to play the game. And I really learned it, Jason, when I was in California. I lived in California for many years. And so in Southern California, where I was going to church, they had a ministry. They'd go to the beach in Laguna Beach, and they'd pick up homeless in a van, bring them to church. Well, that's what they say, right? I mean, isn't that what everybody says? Everybody's welcome here. Every church, we don't care how you dress. We don't care what you be. You're welcome here. And they are, until they show up and smell like urine and have hepatitis C and are drunk and maybe high, and they're sitting next to your kid. And you're going, wait a minute. It sounded great in theory when it was a metaphor.
Yeah.
But for real, when you're really doing it, it costs something. There's a risk. There's something at stake. Okay. You go into these places that kill Christians. They just kill them because we exist. And we don't know what that means in America, and perhaps we will find out shortly. We're certainly finding persecutions beginning in the West. So it doesn't take long for the enemy to decide to wipe us out. He despises us because you continue to talk about the idea of the dignity of the human being, the existence, which is a uniquely Judeo-Christian idea of made in the image of God, and that we are intrinsically valuable as opposed to instrumentally valuable. Thus, we have sacred value simply because we exist. It's a unique idea. Only Judeo-Christian religion came up with it. And from that one idea came everything that we know as justice in America or around the world. Everything we know about women's rights, human rights, children's rights, dignity of existence, no racial boundaries, loving your neighbor, all of that came from one idea. You're made in the image of God. That had never existed anywhere else, and nobody else could understand it. So you are doing the real work, Jason, because you're putting it into practice. That's what I'm so impressed by what you do, because it's serious, boots on the ground. So what I'm curious about is, can you help my people who watch, and they do watch from all over the world, but mainly America. So tell me how this high school dropout, almost idiot buffoon has been so incredibly successful. And I know that you give God the glory. We don't have to presume that. But you had to do the work, man. You were told to do something, and then you did it. That's okay to be said, well done. You did something hard that not everybody's willing to do. So I doubt that most of the people watching are going to go do what you do. But tell them how you took you and put it into practice. I see a need. I don't even know what this means. Next thing you know, you get a ministry or a business or a 501c3 with donors. You're on the thing. You meet people that can tell you, you need to get over to so-and-so land because they're doing this. You're like, what? Let's go. You didn't even know, but God brings people into your life that suddenly let you in on what's going down because you were available. So how do you go about having a burden for something and going, I'm going to do something about this? How do you start that type of a ministry and or life from the ground, from scratch?
Yeah, bro. For me, it started with when I was 16 years old. Really, a few days before my 16th birthday, my high school girlfriend rode her bicycle to my house to tell me she was pregnant. And so we had conspired that on my 17th birthday, which was a few days later, I would join the Army. And she would wear baggy sweaters till I got back from basic training. Now, to put this in perspective, I was a good football player. It was 1988, the year of the death penalty for SMU. And there was a lot of cracking down on universities. So I was what was called a Proposition 48 football player because my grades were a wreck. And in 1987, I wasn't worried about it. But in 1988, things became a little more difficult with recruiters. But yet, we were figuring some things out with the school. It was toward the end of my football season. My girlfriend tells me she's pregnant. But, you know, my mother had me at 16, and my mother and father were divorced before I was 1. So they got married when they were like 16, but divorced before 17. My mother was married a lot. Put this in perspective. So as a child, I watched several marriages and divorces with new kids and new men. And so my daydream was always to be a strong man that had a peaceful home, and I would be a good father. Not a Christian or conservative. I didn't know anything about religion. I just wanted to play football. That's how I would provide for my family, or coach football one day. So that was really all I thought about. But when this happened, there was I called an audible, and we were going to join the Army. So I did. I went down to the recruiter on my 17th birthday, and I joined the Army. When you're 17 and you don't have a high school degree, your only choice is infantry. I don't even think you can do it today, but in those days you could go right in. So while I was in basic training, she was hiding the pregnancy. For me and for her, because we both came from kind of dysfunctional families, we were just naive teenagers that were so excited that we could, you know, start the universe anew, a human family anew, and do something, show the world how it's done. But her father found out she was pregnant and beat her up and took her to get a forced abortion in the 3rd trimester. And so she called me at Fort Benning, Georgia, crying, sharing her story, telling me what happened. I didn't even know abortion was legal, as strange as that sounds. Didn't really know it was a thing. Um, and that's when it just was impressed upon me that this problem of evil. And I said to my high school girlfriend, I'm going to end abortion. So just recently, Ben Shapiro and John Stemberger published this book on the 50 greatest pro-life leaders in history. Ronald Reagan, Pope John Paul II, Mother Teresa. And I was honored to be included into that book. So that's really how it started for me. As a young infantryman, I wrote a 40-year plan on how to order my life to end abortion, which included making movies. You know, my first movie was Bella, which won the Toronto International Film Festival. I made a movie with Justin Bieber's mother called Crescendo, a powerful little short film on abortion. And most recently, I had a documentary on Planned Parenthood's history at Fox Nation with Benjamin Watson called Divided Hearts of America. So a lot of my films have that theme. But I'd set out to how do I just take myself as a young soldier, as a young man, and if I give myself 40 years to acquire abilities and friendships and influence and exert that on behalf of the child in the womb, how would I do that? And I set out to do that. And when I got out of the Army, I knew I had to go to college. That was part of my 40-year plan, obviously. Went to the University of Hawaii, and there were groups like these Chinese students on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square that wanted to do an event, but they couldn't get anyone to attend. Students from the former Yugoslavia wanted to put together protests on the war that was there and events. So I built a pretty large pro-life club. And I thought, what if I leveraged the pro-life club, and I was chairman of the College Republicans, to serve these other communities? To me, I always get offended when people talk about abortion in the context of other issues. But to me, that are not like and commensurate. But genocide, democide, and total war, to me, these are like and commensurate to abortion. So it was this idea I had in college that I wanted to found an organization. By the way, I was still an atheist. I wanted to found an organization that fought abortion and stood with communities facing genocide and democide and were trapped in total war. That was it. And then that was where it was birthed. And I was always a planner. So I make plans and scrap plans and remake plans and set goals. But to your point about God, when people come to work for me, I say, listen, this is going to be very disappointing working for me because you're going to learn something real soon. We do not do anything here. We don't do anything. God does the wildest things around us. We point and we take credit. And if you look at just so many of the things that we've been able to do, it's just not possible. It's just unbelievable that how all of the pieces fit into place. Just for example, there was a religious order of nuns that we helped evacuate from Ukraine in the earliest days of the invasion. Their convent was under direct fire from the Russians. Well, guess where the religious order moved them after Ukraine? Gaza. So when we wanted to put together a program to assist Christians in Gaza, we had, these sisters that we had worked with in Ukraine are now in Gaza. It's just one thing after another where we're able to really work to serve these communities. I say we live in the book of Acts. We still live in the book of Acts. You know, that grace is available to us. And I really do think that if you are really kissing lepers, if you are really kneeling down next to a woman who's about to be stoned to death, which we do literally, not just metaphorically in my organization, you will see the types of grace and miracles that we see in the book of Acts. And the Vulnerable People Project, it's something we witness all the time.
So you were the originator of intersectionality.
It's kind of true. It's kind of true. It is intersectionality. It is, yeah. When I see Uyghurs fighting for Yazidis, and then and all these communities joining me at the March for Life, I'm like, this is intersectionality.
Yeah, but obviously with a beautiful conclusion. You know, the leftist, the wokies, and the Marxists have done what they always do. They've tried to take a couple elements of Christianity that are beautiful that they certainly haven't manufactured. Nothing good has come out of Marxism ever. It's never created anything. It's literally deserves the principle of critical theory because that's all it is. It just criticizes, it breaks down, it tears down, which, by the way, is easy to do. You don't have to be skilled to break things. You got to be skilled to build. Anybody can set a building on fire. It takes very few people that can be an architect and create it from scratch. That's the difference between Christianity, which are the architects and the engineers and the minds that see something beautiful and try to create from what God's given us. But he says, you get to work. I'm not doing it for you. And those who simply destroy as though somehow they've done something noble, it's evil. But you've shown, but interestingly, Jason, you were living by a Judeo-Christian worldview without knowing it, because you said you were an atheist, but you felt like there was this sense of justice, which cannot exist without God. There is, because then it's just a subjective personal opinion. And why should I give justice to my enemy? I don't give a crap about them. They're evil. So that only Christianity sort of demands you supersede your nature and do something grander than that, to live supernaturally, naturally, which is what you do. And I really do believe that in places in the world that maybe don't have a lot of modern technology, don't have an emergency clinic right down 5 blocks away if they need it, don't have plenty of food to eat, don't have plenty of air conditioning when it's too hot, don't have heating when it's cold, don't have a proper foods, don't have proper medicine. Those guys have no option but to believe God. And suddenly something happens that we'll never see in the West, because God said, oh, you don't need me? Okay. Go try the WHO, see how they work out. Try the CDC. They'll help you out. Well, you've now seen that that's completely corrupt and completely political. So you can only count on people of virtue, and they're hard to find. So you told me that you saw things from a personal standpoint that you wanted to try to fix, and the sacrifice of your child that you didn't want, if I could be so bold, the crucifixion of your child has brought healing and life to who knows how many thousands, maybe millions, because of your ministry. You didn't choose that that way of what was going to be your life and what was going to happen to you. But what a beautiful testimony to your child that you'll meet someday. Said, you know what, I didn't get to meet you. I wish I could have, but we did a lot of great things in your name. And so you lived on in my heart. So that's a beautiful thing, brother. But I guess what I do want to know is, okay, so let's say people are like you. They have some burning desire that God has called them to do. Pro-life is crucial, but not everybody's called to the pro-life movement, or at least to put all of their energies in that regard. Maybe they're called to school boards. We've got to change the school system. It's filled with this Marxist evil. Maybe they're called to politics. I want to go be an actual virtuous man who cares about the Constitution. Maybe they're called to just having a business that is done honorably and shows that my witness is I'm the best mechanic in town. I don't know, but can you inspire them or give them some thoughts from your incredible journey? How can they start their life's goal and mission? How can they turn their desires, their itching teeth, into a proactive way to change the world?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I do want to say I did become a Christian because, Brad, I agreed with what you said. I was an Ayn Rand objectivist. So I was a Randian, atheist, pro-life, human rights activist in college. And, but I came to just realize, reading Nietzsche and Sartre, Nietzsche and Sartre and Freud, helped blow up this idea of what that I was doing was rational. It didn't seem to make any rational sense. If there is no God, there is no meaning in life. But to me, the human person had such self-evident dignity, which Ayn Rand would even have accepted. So I realized that I had to look to revealed religious truth maybe as a place to find I would say that it's not irrational. It's irrational in a world without meaning. And if there's no God, the world has no meaning. And so I looked to theism. First, actually, I read the Quran first, and I started reading the Jewish scriptures. But when I read the New Testament, and I really read the New Testament, here I am, almost graduated from college at the time, and thought of myself as educated at this point. And I've always, even though I was a bad student, I was always a reader, reading everything I could get my hands on. Yet I had never read the New Testament. And I didn't even have the slightest clue of what I would find in the New Testament. And when I started reading the New Testament and Paul's letters, it was unbelievable to me. It was like putting a key in a lock that was perfect, that it explained how I see people, how I kind of think I should try to live. Obviously, I didn't like the sexual morality part of it all, you know. As a young man, I didn't even think that was possible. But yeah, I was just captivated by the Gospels and Paul and John's letters especially. But it led to me becoming a Christian. And so for people whose teeth are itching, I know if they're watching Brad Stine Has Issues, they're already doing it. I think of oncologists. I think of the guy that owns the local pizza place that for 30 years has been employing generations of young people in the town and others. You know, we're surrounded by people fighting very important battles that are EMTs, that, you know, work at the retirement communities, caring for our elderly. You have a child with autism. I think that each and every one of us as a Christian, we just need to know, when you know these three things, you know who we are, and these three things that are unbelievable, that we are priest, prophet, and king. Like, we are all priests, prophets, and kings. We're not a priest, we're not a prophet, and we're not a king. We're all of those. And what does that mean? Well, as a priest, that means that I am to represent the family. As a Christian, as a believer, I am standing between our community and our Creator. And our job is to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with all of them. It's to sacrifice for those who hate us, to sacrifice for those who are our very enemies, to put their interests above our interests, and to do so to the point of even suffering, to being martyred as our Lord was martyred. So we're priests, we're prophets. What does that mean? You're a professional prophet, and you do it in a very creative way. And comedians, not just Christian comedians, as you know, all comedians, they're the prophets of the age. They're the ones that say the unpopular truths that we need to hear. And all Christians are prophets. I don't need to tell you in the world what they know, where they're right. I don't need to tell them where they're wrong all the time and henpeck the world. But where the world is wrong about the things that are most important about God, man, and the world, my job is to tell them. And if it means they're going to stone me to death, then so be it. They stone me to death, but because I'm a prophet. And a king, what does it mean to be a king? Well, what is a good king? I'm not a tyrant. We want to be good kings. Well, a good king is a servant to all. So you talk about running for the school board, talk about running for the state house. You know, state house of representatives is probably the hardest job in the world, you know? So when you run for office or the school board, but all of us, we're the kings. We're kings. And so as a king, my job is to do all I can for the most marginalized people in my family, in my neighborhood, in the political communities in which I live, my state house district, my house district, my state, my country. So I'm a king. So it's really an amazing thing to just sit there and understand that's who we are. That's who all of us are as baptized Christians.
Yeah.
And that's a really liberating thing. And when I say that I'm a loser with high self-esteem. I will tell you this, Brad, I have high self-esteem, but I don't expect too much of myself. And that's really liberating, because that means I can try my hardest. And if I fall on my face, I don't expect anything much more from me than that. I really don't. I want to do my best, not pretend to do my best, not fake do my best, not try to trick people that I'm doing my best, not try to trick myself I'm doing my best. I want to order my life as thoughtfully as possible. I want to work as efficiently as possible. I want to do my very, very best. Probably short of God's amazing grace, my best is not good enough. But that is fine by me. That is fine by me. But just by doing my best, my wife, I'm trying to learn Farsi. And my wife today walked in on me. I've been trying to learn for a year. My wife is listening to me practice, and she goes, why do you do this? Are you doing this to make them know that you care about them? I said, no. I said, I'm honestly doing this to make them laugh. The Afghan allies, former allies we have in safe houses that we care. And as they're in a position that is we're caring for them. We're keeping them alive. We're hiding them. We're moving them. We're feeding them. We're paying for their surgeries or whatever. Their lives are in our hands. And these are very talented, very smart people. And I'm just a schmuck, if I can say that. And it's embarrassing to me that I'm in this position of over them in a way. So anytime I can look goofy, anytime they can laugh behind my back or chuckle as I try to speak to them in Farsi, that to me is a good thing. And that's because I know who I am, but that's who I am. That's with, my intellect or my opportunities or my upbringing goes into all of that. But through our baptism into the body of Christ, through God's grace, we can do marvelous and unbelievable and unimaginable things. And so to the people listening, I know you're already doing it. I get embarrassed when people will compare the work that I do, like, we're going to deliver this year. We hope to deliver enough coal to provide 100 million hours of heat this winter across the world to the poorest communities. That's my job. And that's my job. And someone else's job is to make sure every kid in town doesn't have a toothache and they get their teeth fixed. Mm-hmm. And someone else's job is to make sure kids don't get run over by a car crossing the street. And someone else's job is to pull us out of cars when we get in wrecks and our legs are turned into soup. We all have different jobs. Others of us are so overwhelmed with mental illness because of original sin and actual sin that fell on you as a young person that you're just battling to smile at your neighbor. Well, that's your battle, and that's a beautiful battle. We all have different battles. But it's when you know who you are through your baptism. Well, right there, that's it. And so the one thing, too, is I do plan a lot, but that's because I have ADHD, dyslexia, I'm a wreck. If I'm not very disciplined, if I don't have plans, when I introduced you, I said, you need to meet Andrew. Here's Andrew. Like, if I didn't do that then, I would have never introduced you to Andrew.
Yeah.
I have to.
Well, and I'm grateful you did, because I got to at least chat with him for a moment, and that was my connection to this guy that I do respect and what he did. Listen, we're getting to the end, and I told you an hour, and I know you're busy, and so I really appreciate it. I have one last question. Perhaps we can do this again sometime because you have so much to talk about, and you always have some new story. But I do have one question that I usually give to those of us who have given $3 a month to be part of the militia of the mind. That is the mighty 10,000 of people who have decided they are going to identify as an American. They're going to care about this nation, about its sovereignty, about its freedom, about its liberties, and that they are not going to take it for granted. So we're going to outthink them, outpray them, outfight them, and that's what it means to be part of the militia of the mind. And hopefully, the last case scenario is real warfare, and we hope that doesn't happen in America. We don't know. It's happened before, but in the meantime, God would say, try to exhaust every other possibility. So I guess what I wanted to leave them with, and they have to come to the other side here to see this, but you talked for a second about these incredible things that you've seen happen. Excuse me. Because you believe they will. So can you give me at least one of maybe the most miraculous stories of something that happened, and whether it was, something that happened to you or to one of your people, but something that was so miraculous that it sounds fantasy, like you're just making this up. This couldn't.
I'll give you one I can prove. You know what I mean? Like, not about when I was digging a well in Antarctica and then the polar bear came and I said, if only Al Gore was here to save me, and then Al Gore came in. I won't tell you because there's no way to prove that.
Yeah.
No, so I made this short film. My buddy Eduardo Verástegui, who's running for president of Mexico right now. Again, things you say that sound crazy. That my wife says, "Don't say that at the neighborhood party." So my buddy Eduardo, we made a little film together called Bella, but it won the Toronto International Film Festival.
Well, we should bring you back on the podcast when it gets closer to your book release so we can help promote it. But, you know, like I said, brother, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate what you're doing. Keep you in your my prayers, and just, you know, fight well, man. If you're ever in Nashville, please look me up. Are you still in Hawaii? Where do you live?
No, I moved to Texas, the German Hill Country of Texas.
Okay.
I'll be at NRB this year,
Right.
promoting my book. So I look forward to seeing you in Nashville.
Well, and I'm in Texas a lot as well. So, folks, you got your marching orders. Here's a guy that went through some challenges in his life, felt like he didn't have a lot to offer, but he had one spark, one itching tooth that stated there's something in this earth that needs to be rectified. Something's wrong, and I'm going to fix it. And that simple idea of God watching to say, who's ready to go do some work? He will make sure that it's possible. You know, God knows everything that's going to happen, and he certainly intervenes periodically in whatever way he can, sovereignly, but he does expect us to do the work. We have to finish the screw up we started and see if we can redeem this nation, and one day it will be redeemed. But in the meantime, get busy. And that's really all I try to do on Brad Stine Has Issues, try to give you some marching orders, try to encourage you. Join the Militia of the Mind. It's only $3 a month. You go to bradstine.com, you just give me your email, and it's $3, but it allows me to contact you if I can, in case something goes sideways and I get kicked out for all the places. I can go still find you. We can still work together. Become part of the mighty 10,000, the first 10,000 people to say, I'm going to help this program exist, as well as getting people like Jason, and even be able to donate to his ministry and people like that. I mean, we have to work together. Like he said, this is first century church stuff where we have to take care of each other as God would expect. But remember, folks, if they ever tell you you are politically incorrect, always say thank you for the compliment. Nothing could be a greater compliment than to despise Marxism. This is God's comic, Brad Stine, and as usual, all I'm doing is putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.